back to Cinematic. I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but this time we're doing Project A, which is actually the second of 6 of the Three Dragons movies, so-called. Not because it's a franchise, but because it's starring Sammo Hung, Jackie Chan, and Yuen Biao all together. Even though I'm guessing they probably worked on films together before this, and certainly after, there are 6 where they're kind of front and center, even though I would still put an asterisk on that. The first one was actually Winners and Sinners just 4 months before Project A. But that's also the first in another unofficial trilogy, the Lucky Stars trilogy, where Sammo kind of takes the lead, I would say, for the most part, and there's more of an ensemble that doesn't necessarily always include Jackie and Yuen Biao. In fact, I want to say in some of them, he's only there for like maybe a scene at the beginning and the end or something like that. But we're going to do My Lucky Stars, I believe, eventually, which is the second of those. We'll probably skip Twinkle Twinkle, Lucky Stars, and then we'll come back for the final 2 of the Three Dragons movies, Wheels on Meals, and yes, I'm saying that correctly, and Dragons Forever. So we'll talk about that later. But honestly, Project A isn't even at the top of that list for me, necessarily, and I know that's going to make some people mad. Project A is one you continue to hear about. Jackie Chan was already huge at this point in his career. The movie did really well, and it has continued to pop up on a lot of Jackie Chan top 10 lists over the years. This is even technically the second time for me, even though I remember very little from the first time, and regardless enjoyed, I think, more revisiting it in context as I go through all these films in semi-chronological order. You've probably even already seen the Stunt from this movie on YouTube or something. We'll talk about it later. But for that reason, I wanted to especially call out this time around that if you're looking for something exhaustive, maybe even educated about this movie, I'm sure it's out there, and feel free to share it. I love watching those as well. But for me, for now, this is what I thought of Project A. Have you ever seen White Christmas? Because I hadn't until Candy brought it into the family, and it's about this general and his 2 subordinates, but there's like a filial bond regardless. It always struck me as a little weird because it was kind of like a family and a Christmas tale at that, but it's about these 2 soldiers and their superior, which, I don't know, always seemed a little weird. Project A has the same thing going on, where Jackie Chan is a member of the Hong Kong Marine Police. There's a real filial bond going on, not only between him and his fellow soldiers, but also with their admiral. So they're all kind of broken up when the commanding Englishman disbands the Marine Police and makes them join the land police, the real police. Because yes, this does actually take place later than we're used to. It's not quite the modern urban settings that would come to characterize Jackie, Sammo, and Yuen Biao's new wave here in a bit, but we are inching ever closer to the 20th century because yes, the English have occupied Hong Kong. They're also, in this movie, colluding with the nearby pirates, the local gangsters, and the corrupt police chief himself, who is actually the uncle of Yuen Biao. So Yuen Biao's on the police force, and he and his fellow men are at odds with Jackie and his fellow men. In fact, there's a big knockdown, drag-out fight at the bar pretty early on in the film. That's a lot of fun to watch. You might have already seen that on YouTube as well. But Yuen Biao actually has one of the more satisfying arcs in the film because over time he makes friends with Jackie and becomes integral in the third act, where basically Project A is reinstated, the entire Hong Kong Marine Police is reinstated. And if Project A sounds like kind of a weird title, you've probably heard this story before as well, but this is past the point of people kind of stealing Jackie's ideas out from under him. You know, apparently his films would have the title of the Kung Fu style that he would be tackling, and others would go out and make a quick, dirty film about that same style before he could even get his out because he was actually taking the time. So he started naming his films semi-ambiguously, and Project A was one of those. So Project A refers to this plan they had by the end to go undercover on Pirate Island, release some hostages that had been taken, and just generally speaking, kick all of the butts. And I will say, story-wise, this was written by Jackie Chan and Edward Tong. It's far less vignetted than maybe we're used to seeing. I think I mentioned that before, especially with some of Sammo's films where there can be a scene or a fight in places that feel completely unrelated to the rest of the film. There's not really any of that going on here. Like everything they set up does come back in some sort of way, even if it does still feel a little disjointed at times, but you're never bored, certainly. And it looks really good. I know this was, I think, the biggest budget that Jackie was allotted so far, and you can see it on screen, but also the colors are really good. I don't know how much of that is the remaster going around. There are some really good transfers. This has been well taken care of or fixed up over time, but it just looks really, really good. But probably unsurprisingly, Project A is at its best during the action. And the first thing I want to call out when it comes to that is the Jackie Chan stunt team, the Singaban, which was loosely formed in 76, 77, depending on who you ask, because it kind of came about organically as Jackie was working with certain people on all of these movies over time. He realized who he liked working with, who was able to work with him. They got used to knowing each other's limits, or probably testing each other's limits would be a better way to put that. So they pretty much just made it official in 1983, which I think health insurance was probably a big part of that. They could find some at that point if they were their own organization, because they were all uninsurable. And in 1983, Wikipedia says it was 6 guys, but I found a fantastic history on thorstenboost.de. I'll put the link in the description. And there I count 7. Chris Lee King Song, Johnny Cheong Yui Hua, Wan Fat, Bruce Tong Yim Chan, Frankie Boon Bin Chung, Paco Yik Ting Hung, and Sham Chin Bo. And I don't know that I needed to tell you all of those names, but the Jackie Chan stunt team is a force and will be a force and is still a force. They did Shang-Chi. They did a lot of that CGI mixing with Kung Fu that I found working for me for the first time, maybe ever. I'm still looking for examples, so that may change. But the Jackie Chan stunt team is a force and continues to be, and certainly is something that I wish we could call out by name every single time. But failing that, I will do it this time. It could be an episode all on its own, obviously. In fact, when I was researching for this, I found a clip of Jackie Chan and several generations of the stunt team reunited behind him. It was a surprise to him at the moment. I think it was done around the time he got that Lifetime Achievement Award at the Oscars. This was back in China, if I had to guess. And it is a little bit, like the production itself is a little manipulative. Like there's a lot of feel-goodery around it that probably production-wise didn't need to be there, because I think it's effective all on its own. So I will still link it below. It's very cool. Go check it out. But I also wanted to call out Jackie himself, because I feel like I've mentioned this before and never really talked about what I mean. But Jackie is an auteur in every sense of the word. And if you haven't heard about that controversial theory, it's this idea that a director can have a signature, a visual signature of sorts. It's more to it than that, but that kind of shines through all of the other people. This is why it's controversial, because a lot of people make a movie. So I think Jackie, though, when it comes to speaking of his direction, how he makes a film, is pretty recognizable, even if it's born out of functionality, I feel like sometimes. And I've talked about this in specifics, but he will pull back because he can. You know, he wants to show you everything that's going on in the frame because it's actually happening. So there's that to it. But also, even just blocking wise, which I feel like when it comes to a Kung Fu movie, I should probably use a different word, but blocking refers to the placement of actors in relation to the camera, which is important in a Kung Fu film because that's where the, let's say, manufactured realism comes from. You know, when they aren't actually hitting each other, they need to set the camera up in a way that the hits look like they are actually connecting. And we've seen a lot of movies where I feel like they fudge those numbers to some extent. You know, you might see a little daylight here and there, but you go with it. There might be a reaction that's, you know, a few milliseconds too late or something like that. Jackie is next level when it comes to that. And he did direct this too, if I haven't mentioned that. Written and directed, even if he did have help from Edward Tong when it came to writing. Jackie is a master at cinematic blocking. And I think Project A is a special example of that. And you can go back to Fearless Hyena, which he also directed, and I'm sure had no small part in the, Yuen Woo-ping directed Snake and the Eagle Shadow. But here it feels next level. Like it feels like there's some extra care or skill or, he's getting better, however you want to put it. Project A is next level. And that goes for Jackie too, even if it goes without saying. He is just technically that good. And I'm talking about kung fu, I'm talking about physical comedy. There's lots of running around the room and bouncing off the walls with this one, because the other thing I'll shout out is that, and I think I went into this a little bit with The Magnificent Butcher, but another signature of Jackie and Sammo and Yuen Biao's style, but more Jackie Sammo actually, I would say, is that they involve the environment like nothing else. And certainly like nothing else we've seen so far. I feel like it's mostly been one-on-one. It's mostly been concerned with, there has been a little bit, I'm saying mostly, concerned with the versus aspect of it all, right? Mano a mano. Here, it's mano a chair or desk, and mano a stairs and pianos. Like they are just incorporating everything in the moment. And I feel like that's just only going to get more pronounced as these movies go on with Jackie and Sammo and Yuen Biao. But I also feel like there's a lot of staples here that I wasn't expecting to see this early on. There's a rug pull in there, which I've seen in at least Rush Hour, but certainly other Jackie movies. There's a lot of chair tumbling. He's very in tune with the geometry of furniture. Let's say there's some getting pinned by desks and stuff like that. Stuff that I see in Jackie movies down the line. It's here in Project A. The other fight I'll call out is short, but it's Jackie and Sammo together. Pretty much anytime any of the three dragons team up, it's kind of next level, because it's like off in their own area doing their own thing, and it's fun to watch them both because they're incredibly skilled. They always figure out something to do together or off of each other that's new and different and innovative. And then there's The Stunt, which you've probably seen before, probably on one of those top 10 lists that just shows clips of the stunt from every film or whatever it is. This is the one where he's hanging from the clock tower, literally from one of the arms. And he did that. He was afraid of it looking like he was letting go on purpose. So apparently he just held on till he couldn't anymore and then literally slipped off, which sounds crazy, but also, can you imagine being present enough afterwards to still fall in the way you needed to so you didn't die? Or I guess if that's still acting at that point, I don't know. He did it 3 times, so he did that thing where he can't hold on anymore and then falls 3 times. 2 of them are in the movie. You'll see him back to back, like within the bottom of the movie. Body of the movie. The third is at the bottom of the movie. I don't know. It's in the credits, which if you've seen a Jackie Chan movie where the outtakes come at the credits, I guess that was something that was newly coming about. Something he actually learned from Cannonball Run, which he was in. I mean, as much as anybody could be in that movie. There's a lot of moving pieces to Cannonball Run. You should watch it. But at the end of that movie, they had outtakes, so he started doing those in his movie, and it became such a staple that started showing up in his contracts when he was hired to do films. They had to have the outtake reel at the end. So anyway, the third of him falling from that clock tower is in the outtakes if you want to see all 3. It's fantastic. The action in this movie is next level, worth every bit of praise you've probably heard so far. It, even in that same year, did win the award for Best Action Choreography at the Hong Kong Film Awards. So go watch Project A. There's a lot to love, but don't ever take my word for it. And this time you don't have to, because I did invite Evelyn and Candy to watch it with me this time around. And they did, even though Evelyn fell asleep in the middle of the third act. She said she did like the action quite a bit, but Candy stayed awake for the whole thing. So I thought it might be fun to bring her in for a thought or two. What did you think of the movie? It's Candy!
Hi!
So you watched Project A with me.
I did.
Of your own free will and volition.
Yeah, I like Jackie Chan. That's why I went for it.
Yeah, I thought I could. That's one of the reasons I thought I could convince you. Because you don't always want to jump right into the kung fu movies.
No, but I also feel like I had heard of Project A before.
Probably.
So I was like, if I've at least heard of it in the universe, it might be worth watching.
Okay, so you gave it a shot.
I did.
And what did you think?
I liked it. I liked it for... Okay, so... I don't know how early Jackie Chan this was. It was earlier, because my first Jackie Chan movie was Rumble in the Bronx, and I saw that like maybe right after high school.
That's weird. That was mine
Maybe
too.
even during high school. When did that come out?
90s. And this was, let me see if I can actually do this. 78 was Snake in the Eagle's Shadow. But he's been in movies for a long time, but I would say 78, 79 was when he was starting to hit it big.
When was Project A?
83.
So this would have been like 15 years before Rumble in the Bronx.
Yes, so pretty early, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. But so I was like, oh, this is way early Jackie Chan. But I kept finding things that surprised me in a good way about it.
Go on.
Well, like I saw at the beginning that it was written by Jackie Chan and directed by Jackie Chan. And I don't know how many of his movies are written and directed by him. I don't know. Maybe it's all of them.
I don't know either.
But I was like consistently impressed. Like, Jackie Chan.
I mean, he has a very strong hand in most of the movies.
Agreed.
I mean, even when he came over to do Rush Hour in the States, I can say that while there are certainly a lot of Brett Ratner things about it. Jackie Chan was allowed full control over all the action sequences.
Yeah, I imagine he has
kind of tell.
a high level of influence on whatever he's doing, or he wouldn't get involved maybe.
And
but
in Hong Kong, he can do whatever he wants.
Probably, huh? But I was just impressed. I was like, Jackie Chan wrote this story. He did all this. And like at the outtakes, it showed him like setting up camera shots, and I was like, oh yeah, he had to do like all that stuff too. Like I was impressed. But also, so this is one little moment that I was like, oh, Jackie Chan's an artist. Because I know he's a kung fu guy or martial arts guy, and obviously he's a movie guy. But I always just felt like his strong suit was action. But there was a moment.
You're not wrong.
But I just mean like it felt artistic. He had a guy punch the camera. And it just made me feel like I'm in the room with them. Like the guy punched the camera and I was like, oh, we're right here. I don't know. It just was, it was a moment that drew me in.
That was actually for all of I've just recently, you weren't here for this, but went on and on about Jackie Chan. And I didn't mention that there's also a lot of, because they're really quick and small shots that I feel like most people wouldn't notice. So
I feel like there was another wipe or something that I was like, oh, that was super cool. And I can't remember. I've been trying to remember for 2 days.
There's some POV stuff where they're shoving beers into the camera, like a lot of stuff like that you wouldn't think. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, because a lot of his other shots, he's just pulling back the camera and it's more about the physicality of the people.
Yeah, but that's what I thought. I was like, oh, Jackie Chan's an artist. Anyway, so I like that.
Cool.
The other thing that I wanted to mention was I like the length of his shots. And I don't know, I don't think this is maybe necessarily specific to Jackie Chan, but I think maybe he started it. I just feel like in action movies nowadays, the length of the shot is really short.
Yeah, I mean, I know.
I just feel like action would be like, dun dun dun, cut, and then we do the next part, and you just edit them all together to make the action. But his shots are really long. You have lots of action.
Takes are really long. There's a large swath of choreography in between cuts.
Exactly, that's what I'm talking about, and I like that about it. Like it just makes it feel harder to do, less movie magic. It feels like less movie magic and more like real people magic. But I feel like Jackie Chan has held to that through his career. Yeah. But it was nice to see it early Jackie Chan.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things. I noticed that too, actually. There's a solid, not even a dotted line between this movie and everything he did later. Like it's very easy to see.
To draw the connection. Yeah.
That it's from the same guy because it's the same guy.
Because it's the same guy. And the last thing was Sammo. Like I'm sad that Sammo didn't become as huge a star as Jackie Chan.
Weird, because I've also been beating the drum for Sammo. We're like a weird Sammo family. Am I to blame for this?
And I didn't even watch all the Sammo stuff with you and Evelyn.
That's true,
I watched an occasional thing here and there. I just like him. I don't know. I like his style.
A lot of people like Sammo. And it's hard to be as big as Jackie, period.
That's true.
So,
but he's big. as yeah. Anyway, but I just like his style. Anyway, but I feel like he's such a character, and
he's way more. I'd say he's way more of a character.
That's what I mean. Like he's more of a
yeah.
character actor than Jackie. But I'm like, I just don't see why he didn't make it like Jackie did. Especially because I feel like Jackie would have brought him along on anything, you know. So
and he did. Like there's no animosity. Yeah, there's.
But I'm like, he's not in Rumble at the Bronx, and he's not in like I don't know.
That you remember.
Really?
I mean, he could very easily be.
I just feel like Jackie should have been like, what, my dude Samo, he's got to have a part in this. Anyway, so that's all. I'm like, it was nice to see Samo, and I was like, oh, I just don't know why he didn't make it as big as Jackie. Maybe he didn't want to. Maybe he wanted to keep his life chill.
Yeah, that's a whole other podcast.
Samo.
Isn't it? Well, thank you. Was
You're
that
welcome. That was all my thoughts.
Okay. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with me and them.
Hi, Ben.
This, I don't know, could be as regular as if you show up for the Kung Fu movies. A lot of times the schedules don't line up, so it's not your fault anyways. But
thanks. Not a massive Kung Fu fan
also
either,
that, yeah,
so Ryan selectively chooses ones he thinks won't turn me off the genre forever.
I'll count my blessings. Yeah, I knew I could get away with a Jackie movie here and there. Come back next time for another guest. We should be doing 8 diagram pole fighter, which was a recommendation by Mitch, and I believe one of his favorites. So we're going to go back to Lau Kar Lung, which I believe is also his favorite director, and quite hopefully, if Mitch, if you're watching this, you'll come along. You're still up for that. So come back next time for that. And go to Patreon if you want to support any and all of what we do at patreon.com/Ryan_runs_. And we'll see you then.